Netflix did not just bring Toph Beifong into Avatar: The Last Airbender because fans were waiting for her. Toph is not the kind of character you add just to complete the team. She changes the entire balance of the story. Before she arrives, Aang is still learning what it really means to be the Avatar. He has Katara, who believes in him emotionally. He has Sokka, who keeps the group practical and grounded. But what Aang does not have yet is someone who forces him to stop running. That is why Toph matters so much. She is not gentle with him. She is not impressed by his title, and she does not treat him like a chosen one who should be protected from every difficult lesson. Toph enters the story as the person who teaches Aang the one thing he struggles with most: how to stand his ground. Before we go deeper, let's quickly recap what this discussion is really about. Toph Beifong is one of the most important characters in the Avatar universe, and her arrival in Netflix's live-action adaptation is a major turning point. She is Aang's earthbending teacher, but she is also much more than that. She is a blind earthbending prodigy, the daughter of a powerful Earth Kingdom family, a fighter who secretly builds her own identity outside her parents' control, and eventually one of the greatest benders in history. But Netflix's version of Toph also makes some important changes. The live-action show does not simply copy the animated version scene for scene. It gives her family conflict more political weight, makes her emotional struggle more direct, and appears to soften some of her harsher edges. So the real question is not just who Toph is. The real question is whether Netflix understands why she became so beloved in the first place. Toph first became important in the original animated series during Book 2, when Aang needed to learn earthbending. That timing is important because earthbending is the element that goes most strongly against Aang's natural instincts. Aang is an airbender, and airbending is built around movement, freedom, avoidance, and flexibility. When Aang faces danger, his first reaction is usually to move around it. He dodges, he escapes, he tries to find another way. That makes sense for who he is, but earthbending demands the opposite mindset. Earthbending is about stillness, pressure, patience, resistance, and direct confrontation. It is not about floating away from the problem. It is about planting your feet and refusing to be moved. That is why King Bumi's advice matters so much. When Bumi tells Aang to find an earthbending teacher who understands neutral Jing, he is not simply telling him to find someone strong. He is telling Aang to find someone who understands waiting, listening, and striking at the right moment. Toph is perfect for that role because her whole fighting style is built on listening to the world beneath her feet. She does not just throw rocks around because she has power. She reads the earth. She feels movement. She senses where people are, how they are standing, and when they are about to attack. For Toph, earthbending is not only a weapon, it is how she experiences the world. This is where her blindness becomes central to her character, but not in a cheap or shallow way. Toph was born blind, and because of that, her parents treated her like she was delicate and helpless. They came from wealth and status, so they believed their duty was to protect her, shelter her, and keep her away from danger. But in reality, their protection became a prison. They didn't really see who their daughter was. They only saw what they feared could happen to her. And that is the tragedy of Toph's home life. Her parents think they are loving her, but they are also limiting her. Toph's real power begins when she escapes that version of herself. As a child, she learns from the Badger Moles, the original Earthbenders. Through them, she discovers that she can sense vibrations in the ground through her feet. That gives her a way to see the world differently. She cannot see with her eyes, but when she is connected to the earth, she can sense movement, shape, weight, and direction with incredible accuracy. This makes her one of the most unique benders in the entire franchise. Other earthbenders may have strength, but Toph has awareness. She does not just throw rocks around because she has power. She reads the earth. She feels movement. She senses where people are, how they are standing, and when they are about to attack. For Toph, earthbending is not only a weapon, it is how she experiences the world. That is why she fits into Team Avatar so well, even though she doesn't seem like she would at first. Toph is not naturally sentimental. She does not immediately behave like a perfect teammate. She can be rude, blunt, sarcastic, and difficult, but that roughness is part of what makes her feel real. She has spent most of her life fighting to be heard, so she doesn't soften herself just to make others comfortable. She pushes people because the world has always pushed against her. And when she joins Aang, Katara, and Sokka, she brings a totally different energy into the group. Aang needs that energy. Katara often supports Aang emotionally, sometimes even protects him from the full weight of what he has to face. Sokka challenges him in practical ways, but Sokka is not a bending teacher. Toph is different. She directly confronts Aang's weakness. She sees when Aang is avoiding a lesson. She sees when he is scared of pressure, and instead of comforting him through it, she forces him to face it. That may sound harsh, but it is exactly what earthbending requires. If Aang wants to master all 4 elements, he can't only learn the movements, he has to learn the mindset. This is why Toph is not just a fan-favorite character, she is a story necessity. Without Toph, Aang does not become the fully balanced avatar he needs to be. He might learn some earthbending techniques from someone else, but Toph teaches him something deeper. She teaches him firmness. She teaches him resistance. She teaches him that sometimes the answer is not to escape the obstacle, but to meet it directly. For a character like Aang, that is a massive lesson. Now, one of the most interesting things about Netflix's live-action adaptation is that it keeps the foundation of Toph's character, but it also changes parts of her story. Some of those changes make sense for a live-action version. Others are risky. In the animated series, Toph had a sharper edge. She was rude, sarcastic, funny, and sometimes openly mean in a way that made her stand out. She gave Team Avatar a rougher, more chaotic personality. She did not try to be likable all the time, and that was part of why people loved her. She felt free in a way the other characters sometimes did not.
In live action, however, Toph seems a little softer and more emotionally accessible. She still has confidence and attitude, but the show appears to bring her vulnerability closer to the surface. That can work if it is handled carefully. Live action is different from animation. A character who is constantly sarcastic in animation can feel hilarious, but if you translate that exactly into live action, it can sometimes come across as too harsh or unpleasant. So it makes sense that Netflix would try to ground her a little more. The danger is that if they soften her too much, they risk losing the bite that made Toph so special. Toph should not feel like a normal, friendly team member who just happens to be good at earthbending. She should feel disruptive. She should challenge the group. She should create tension with Katara, annoy Sokka, push Aang, and refuse to be treated like someone who needs saving. That is the balance Netflix has to get right. Toph can have emotional depth, but she still needs her sharpness. She can be vulnerable, but she should not become gentle all the time. The reason Toph works is because she is both tough and secretly sensitive. She hides the softer parts of herself behind attitude, confidence, and stubbornness. Another major change in the live-action version involves the Beifong family. In the original animated series, the Beifongs are wealthy, controlling, and overprotective, but they are not deeply connected to the Fire Nation war effort. Their main role is to show the cage Toph has been living in. Netflix seems to expand this by tying the Beifong family more directly to business dealings that connect to the Fire Nation. That is a big change because it turns Toph's family problem into something larger than just strict parenting. This gives Toph a stronger connection to the political world around her. In the original story, she leaves home mostly because she wants freedom and because her parents refuse to accept who she really is. In the live-action version, there's a heavier moral question. What does it mean to come from a powerful family during a war? What does it mean if your family's wealth or business is connected to the enemy, even indirectly? And what happens when Toph begins to realize that the name she was born into may carry a burden she never asked for? That kind of change can make her story more dramatic and more mature, but it also changes the emotional flavor of her arc. The original Toph is powerful partly because she feels so independent from the politics of the adult world. She is not trying to become a symbol, she just wants to live freely. Netflix's version makes her more directly tied to the consequences of her family's choices. That can make the story richer, but it can also make it heavier.
The key is making sure Toph does not become swallowed by family drama. She still needs to feel fun, wild, fearless, and alive. The kidnapping change also makes her family conflict more intense. In the animated series, her parents hire people to bring her home, which already shows how little they respect her independence. But in the live-action version, the conflict becomes more personal if her mother is directly involved in deceiving her or forcing her back home. That makes the betrayal sharper. It is no longer just distant parents sending men after her, it becomes a parent actively choosing control over trust. For Toph, that would cut deeply because her whole life has been defined by people saying they love her while refusing to listen to her. Then there's metalbending, which is one of Toph's greatest achievements. For most Earthbenders, metal is impossible to bend because it has been refined and separated from Earth. But Toph realizes that metal still contains tiny traces of Earth inside it. Because she is sensitive enough to detect those impurities, she becomes the first known metalbender. This moment is not just impressive because it gives her a new power, it proves how differently Toph understands bending. She does not accept limits just because other people repeat them. She looks deeper. She finds the part everyone else missed. That is what makes her a genius. If Netflix connects metalbending to her family conflict, that could be a smart adaptation choice. It would mean Toph's greatest breakthrough comes at a moment when she is trapped by the same kind of control she has spent her life fighting against. Metalbending then becomes more than a cool ability. It becomes a symbol of her refusing to be contained. Her parents can lock her in a box, but they cannot define her. The world can tell her what is impossible, but she will find the weakness in that idea and break through it. Mayako, formerly known as Maya Chek, has a very difficult role because Toph is one of the most beloved characters in Avatar. Fans are not neutral about her. They know her voice, her humor, her attitude, and her importance to the story. So the live-action performance has to do two things at once. It has to honor the character people already love, but it also has to make her feel real in a different medium. That is not easy. If the performance is too soft, fans may feel like Netflix missed the point. If it is too exaggerated, it may feel like someone imitating the cartoon instead of becoming the character. The best version of live-action Toph should feel confident without feeling fake, emotional without becoming weak, and funny without turning into a joke machine. She has to be believable as a young girl who has been underestimated her whole life, but also believable as one of the strongest Earthbenders alive. That balance is everything. When she fights, the audience needs to believe that she is dangerous. When she talks about her family, the audience needs to believe that beneath all the sarcasm, there is real pain. What makes Toph so powerful as a character is that she represents self-definition. Her parents define her as fragile. Her opponents define her as weak. Society defines her by what she cannot do. But Toph defines herself by what she can do. She does not ask for permission to be strong. She proves it. That is why her story still works so well. It is not only about bending, it is about identity. It is about refusing to let other people's fear become your cage. And that's why her arrival in Netflix's Avatar matters so much. Toph is not just Aang's earthbending teacher, she is the character who changes how Aang grows. She teaches him that strength is not always loud, and courage is not always about attacking first. Sometimes courage is standing still when everything in you wants to run. Sometimes power is trusting the ground beneath you. And sometimes the person everyone underestimates is the one who sees the truth most clearly. So if Netflix gets Toph right, Season 2 becomes much stronger. Her story adds humor, conflict, emotional depth, and a harder edge to Team Avatar. But if Netflix removes too much of her sarcasm or makes her too polished, the character could lose what made her iconic. Toph should be messy, she should be stubborn, she should be difficult, she should be funny, and most importantly, she should feel free. Because Toph Beifong is not just important because she teaches Aang Earthbending, she is important because she teaches him and the audience that the world doesn't get to decide who you are before you do.